Hello Mark, I'm Nadia, and my student number is S0341022. And today I'm going to read this article for you. Manal Sharif, a Saudi woman who dared to drive, and I'm a sophomore. Allow me to start this talk with a question to everyone. You know that all over the world, people fight for their freedom, fight for their rights. Some battle oppressive governments, others battle oppressive societies. Which battle do you think is harder? Allow me to try to answer this question in a few coming minutes. Let me take you back 2 years ago in my life. It was the bedtime of my son, Cuddy. He was 5 at the time. After finishing his bedtime rituals, he looked at me and he asked a question. Mommy, are we bad people? I was shocked. Why do you say such things, Cuddy? Earlier that day, I noticed some bruises on his face when he came from school. He wouldn't tell me what happened, but now he was ready to tell. 2 boys hit me today in school. They told me, "We saw your mom on Facebook. You and your mom should be put in jail." I've never been afraid to tell Cuddy anything. I've been always a proud woman of my achievements. But those questioning eyes of my son were my moment of truth, when it all came together. You see, I'm a Saudi woman who had been put in jail for driving a car in a country where women are not supposed to drive cars, just for giving me his car keys. My own brother was detained twice, and he was harassed to the point he had to quit his job as a geologist, leave the country with his wife and 2-year-old son. My father had to sit in a Friday sermon listening to the imam condemning women drives and calling them prostitutes amongst tons of worshippers. Some of them are friends and family of my own father. I was faced with an organized defamation campaign in the local media combined with false rumors shared in family gatherings, in the streets and in schools. It all hit me. It came into focus that those kids did not mean to be rude to my son. They were just influenced by the adults around them, and it wasn't about me, and it wasn't punishment for taking the wheel and driving a few miles. It was a punishment for daring to challenge the society's rules. But my story goes beyond this moment of truth of mine. Allow me to give you a briefing about my story. It was May 2011, and I was complaining to a work colleague about the harassment I had to face trying to find a ride back home. Although I have a car and an international driver's license, as long as I have known, women in Saudi Arabia have been always complaining about the ban, but it's been 20 years since anyone tried to do anything about it, a whole generation ago. He broke the good bad news in my face, but there is no law banning you from driving. I looked it up and he was right. There wasn't an actual law in Saudi Arabia. It was just a costume and traditions that are enshrined in religious fatwas and imposed on women. That realization ignited the idea of June 17th, where we encouraged women to take the wheel and go drive. It was a few weeks later. We started receiving all this. Men wolves will rape you if you go and drive. A courageous woman. Her name is Najah Hariri. She's a Saudi woman in the city of Jeddah. She drove a car and she announced, but she didn't record a video. We needed proof. So I drove. I posted a video on YouTube, and to my surprise, it got hundreds of thousands of views the first day. What happened next? Of course, I started receiving threats to be killed, raped, just to stop this campaign. The Saudi authorities remained very quiet. They really creeped us out. I was in a campaign with other Saudi women and even men activists. We wanted to know how the authorities would respond on the actual day, June 17th, when women get out and drive. So this time I asked my brother to come with me and drive by a police car. It went fast. We were arrested, signed a pledge not to drive again, released, arrested again. He was sent to detention for 1 day, and I was sent to jail. I wasn't sure why I was sent there, because I didn't face any charges in the interrogation, but what I was sure of was my innocence. I didn't break a law, and I kept my abaya. It's a black cloak we wear in Saudi Arabia before we leave the house, and my fellow prisoners kept asking me to take it off, but I was so sure of my innocence. I kept saying, "No, I'm leaving today." Outside the jail, the whole country went into a frenzy, some attacking me badly, and others supportive and even collecting signatures in a petition to be sent to the king to release me. I was released after 9 days. June 17th comes. The streets were packed with police cars and religious police cars, but some hundreds brave Saudi women broke the ban and drove that day. None were arrested. We broke the taboo. So I think by now, everyone knows that we can't drive, or women are not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia, but maybe few know why. Allow me to help you answer this question. There was this official study that was presented to the Shura Council. It's the consultative council appointed by the king in Saudi Arabia, and it was done by a local professor, a university professor. He claims it's done based on a UNESCO study, and the study states the percentage of rape, adultery, illegitimate children, even drug abuse, prostitution in countries where women drive is higher than countries where women don't drive. I know, I was like this. I was shocked. I was like, we are the last country in the world where women don't drive. So if you look at the map of the world, that only leaves 2 countries, Saudi Arabia and the other society is the rest of the world. We started a hashtag on Twitter mocking the study, and it made headlines around the world. BBC News, end of virginity if women drive, Saudi clergy warns. And only then we realize it's so empowering to mock your oppressor. It stripes is a way of its strongest weapon, fear. This system is based on ultra-conservative traditions and customs that deal with women as if they are inferior and they need a guardian to protect them, so they need to take permission from this guardian, whether verbal or written. All their lives, we are minors until the day we die. And it becomes worse when it's enshrined in religious fables based on wrong interpretation of the Sharia law or the religious laws. What worse, when they become codified as laws in the system, and when women themselves believe in their inferiority, and they even fight those who try to question these rules. So for me, it wasn't only about these attacks I had to face. It was about living 2 totally different perceptions of my personality, of my person, the villain back in my home country, and the hero outside. Just to tell you, 2 stories happened in the last 2 years. One of them is when I was in jail. I'm pretty sure when I was in jail, everyone saw titles in the international media, something like this during these 9 days I was in jail. But in my home country, it was a totally different picture. It was more like this. Manal Sharif faces charges of disturbing public order and inciting women to drive. I know. Manal Sharif withdraws from the campaign. Oh, it's okay. This is my favorite. Manal Sharif breaks down and confesses. Foreign forces incited me. And it goes on, even trial and flogging me in public. So it's a totally different picture. I was asked last year to give a speech at the Also Freedom Forum. I was surrounded by this love and the support of people around me, and they look at me as an inspiration. At the same time, I flew back to my home country. They hated that speech so much. The way they called it a betrayal to the Saudi country and the Saudi people, and they even started a hashtag called Also Traitor on Twitter. Some 10,000 tweets were written in that hashtag, while the opposite hashtag, Also Hero, there was like a handful of tweets written. They even started a poll. More than 13,000 voters answered this poll, whether they consider me a traitor or not after that speech. 19% said yes, she's traitor, so it leads to totally different perceptions of my personality. For me, I'm a proud Saudi woman, and I do love my country. And because I love my country, I'm doing this. Because I believe a society will not be free if the women of that society are not free. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But you learn lessons from the things that happen to you. I learned to be always there. The first thing, I got out of jail. Of course, after I took a shower, I went online. I opened my Twitter account and my Facebook page, and I being always very respectful to those people who are opening to me. I will listen to what they say, and I will never defend myself with words only. I will use actions. When they said I should withdraw from the campaign, I filed the first lawsuit against the General Directorate of Traffic Police for not issuing me a driver license. There are a lot of people also, very big support, like those 3,000 people who signed the petition to release me. We sent a petition to the Shura Council in favor of lifting the ban of Saudi women, and there were like 3,500 citizens who believed in that, and they signed that petition. There were people like that. I just show some examples who are amazing, who are believing in women's rights in Saudi Arabia and trying, and they are also facing a lot of hate because of speaking up and voicing their views. Saudi Arabia today is taking small steps toward enhancing women's rights. The Shura Council that's appointed by the king by royal decree of King by royal decree of King Abdullah. That year there were 30 women assigned to that council, like 20% of the council. The same time, finally, that council, after rejecting our petition 4 times for women driving, they finally accepted it last February. After being sent to jail or sentenced lesion or sent to a trial, the spokesperson of the traffic police said, "We will only issue traffic violation for women drivers." The Grand Mufti, who is the head of the religious establishment in Saudi Arabia, he said, "It's not recommended for women to drive. It used to be haram, forbidden, by the previous Grand Mufti." So for me, it's not about only these small steps, it's about women themselves. A friend once asked me, she said, "So when do you think this women driving will happen?" I told her, only if women stop asking when and take action to make it now. So it's not only about the system, it's also about us women to drive our own life, I say. So I have no clue, really how I became an activist, and I don't know how I became one now. But all I know and all I'm sure of, in the future when someone asks me my story, I will say, I'm proud to be amongst those women who lifted the ban, filled the ban, and celebrated everyone's freedom. So the question I started my talk with, who do you think is more difficult to face, oppressive governments or oppressive societies? I hope you find clues to answer that from my speech. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for your listening. Hello Mark, I'm Nadia, and my student number is S0341022, and I'm the sophomore. Today I'm going to release article, and the title is Cuddy's Your Body Language Shapes Who You Are. So I want to start by offering you a free, no-tag life hack, and all it requires of you is this, that you change your posture for 2 minutes. But before I give it away, I want to ask you to right now do a little dot of your body and what you are doing with your body. So how many of you are sort of making yourself smaller? Maybe you are hunching, crossing your legs, maybe wrapping your ankles. Sometimes we hold onto our arms like this. Sometimes we spread out. I see you. So I want you to pay attention to what you are doing right now. We are going to come back to that in a few minutes. And I'm hoping that if you learn to tweak this a little bit, it could significantly change the way your life unfolds. So we are really fascinated with body language, and we are particularly interested in other people's body language. We are interested in, an awkward interaction, or a smile, or a contemptuous glance, or maybe a very awkward wink, or maybe even something like a handshake. Narrator. Here they are arriving at number 10. These lucky policemen get to shake hands with the President of the United States. Here comes the Prime Minister. No. Cuddy. So a handshake or the leg of a handshake can have us talking for weeks and weeks and weeks. Even the BBC and the New York Times. So obviously when we think about nonverbal behavior or body language, but we call it nonverbal as social scientists, it's language. So we think about communication. When we think about communication, we think about interactions. So what is your body language communicating to me? What's mine communicating to you? And there's a lot of reason to believe that this is a valid way to look at this. So social scientists have spent a lot of time looking at the effects of our body language or other people's body language on judgments. And we make sweeping judgments and influence from body language, and those judgments can predict really meaningful life outcomes, like who we hire or promote, who we ask out on a date. For example, Natalie Embody, a researcher at Tufts University, shows that when people watch 30-second soundless clips of real physician-patient interactions, their judgments of the physician's nicely predict whether or not that physician will be sued. So it doesn't have to do so much with whether or not that physician was incompetent, but do we like that person and how they interacted? Even more dramatic, Alex Tadariel at Princeton has shown us that judgments of political candidates' face in just 1 second predict 70% of U.S. Senate and gubernatorial race outcomes, and even Let's Go Digital emoticons used well in online negotiations can lead to you come more value from that negotiation. If you use them poorly, bad idea, right? So when we think of nonverbals, we think of how we judge others, how they judge us, and what the outcomes are. We tend to forget, though, the other audience that influenced by our nonverbals, and that's ourselves. We are also influenced by our nonverbals, our thoughts and our feelings and our physiology. So what nonverbals am I talking about? I'm a social psychologist. I study prejudice and I teach at a competitive business school. So it was inevitable that I would become interested in power dynamics. I became especially interested in nonverbal expressions of power and dominance. And what are nonverbal expressions of power and dominance? Well, this is what they are. So in the animal kingdom, they are about expanding. So you make yourself big, you stretch out, you take up space, you're basically opening up. It's about opening up. And this is true across the animal kingdom. It's not just limited primates. And humans do the same thing. So they do this both when they have power sort of chronically and also when they are feeling powerful in the moment. And this one is especially interesting because it really shows us how universal and all these expressions of power are. This expression, which is known as pride, Jessica Chasey has studied. She showed that people who are born with sight and people who are congenitally blind do this when they win at a physical competition. So when they cross the finish line and they have left wing, it doesn't matter if they never see anyone do it. They do this. So the arms up in a V, the chin is slightly lifted. What do we do when we feel powerless? We do exactly the opposite. We close up. We wrap ourselves up. We make ourselves small. We don't want to bump into the person next to us. So again, both animals and humans do the same thing. And this is what happens when you put together high and low power. So what we tend to do when it comes to power is that we complement the other's nonverbals. So if someone is being really powerful with us, we tend to make ourselves smaller. We don't mirror them. We do the opposite of them. So I'm watching this behavior in the classroom, and what do I notice? I notice that MBA students really exhibit the full range of power nonverbals. So you have people who are like caricatures of us. Really coming into the room, they get right into the middle of the room before class even starts. Like they really want to occupy space. When they sit down, they are sort of spread out. They raise their hands like this. You have other people who are virtually collapsing when they come in. As soon as they come in, you see it. You see it on their faces and their bodies. And they sit in their chair and they make themselves tiny. And they go like this when they raise their hand. I noticed a couple of things about this. One, you are not going to be surprised. It seems to be related to gender. So women are much more likely to do this kind of thing than men. Women feel chronically less powerful than men. So this is not surprising. But the other thing I noticed is that it also seemed to be related to the extent to which the students were participating and how well they were participating. And this is real important in the MBA classroom because participation counts for half the grade. So business schools have been struggling with this gender grade gap. You get these equally qualified women and men coming in, and then you get these differences in grades. And it seems to be partly attributable to participation. So I started to wonder, okay, so you have these people coming like this and they are participating. Is it possible that we could get people to fake it and would it lead them to participate more? So my main collaborator, Dana Carney, who's at Berkeley, and I really wanted to know, can you fake it till you make it? Like, can you do this just for a little while and actually experience a behavioral outcome that makes you seem more powerful? So we know that our nonverbals govern how other people think and feel about us. There's a lot of evidence, but our question really was, do our nonverbals govern how we think and feel about ourselves? There's some evidence that they do. So for example, we smile when we feel happy, but also when we are forced to smile by holding a pen in our teeth like this, it makes us feel happy. So it goes both ways. When it comes to power, it also goes both ways. So when you feel powerful, you are more likely to do this. But it's also possible that when we pretend to be powerful, you are more likely to actually feel powerful. So the second question really was, so we know that our minds change our bodies, but is it also true that our bodies change our minds? And when I say minds, in the case of the powerful, what am I talking about? So I'm talking about thoughts and feelings and the sort of physiological things that make make up our thoughts and feelings. And in my case, that's hormones. I look at hormones. So what do the minds of the powerful versus the powerless look like? So powerful people tend to be, not surprisingly, more assertive and more confident, more optimistic. They actually feel they are going to win even at games of chance. They also tend to be able to think more abstractly. So there are a lot of differences. They take more risks. There are a lot of differences between powerful and powerless people. Physiologically, there also are differences on two key hormones: testosterone, which is the dominance hormone, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So what we find is that high-power alpha males in primates hierarchies have high testosterone and low cortisol, and powerful and effective leaders also have high testosterone and low cortisol. So what does that mean? When you think about power, people tended to think only about testosterone because that was about dominance. But really, power is also about how you react to stress. So do you want the high power leader that dominant, high on testosterone, but really stress reactive? Probably not, right? You want the person who's powerful and assertive and dominant, but not very stress reactive. The person who's laid back. So we know that in primates hierarchies, if an alpha needs to take over, if an individual needs to take over an alpha role sort of suddenly, within a few days, that individual's testosterone has gone up significantly and his cortisol has dropped significantly. So we have this evidence, both that the body can shape the mind, at this at the facial level, and also that role changes can shape the mind. So what happens? Okay, you take a role change. What happens if you do that at a really minimal level, like this tiny manipulation, this tiny intervention? For 2 minutes, you say, I want you to stand like this, and it's going to make you feel more powerful. So this is what we did. We decided to bring people into the lab and run a little experiment. And these people adopted, for 2 minutes, either high power poses or low power poses. And I'm just going to show you 5 of the poses, although they took on only 2. So here's one, a couple more. This one has been dubbed the Wonder Woman by the media. Here are a couple more. So you can be standing or you can be sitting. And here are the low power poses. So you are folding up, you are making yourself small. This one is very low power. When you are touching your neck, you are really protecting yourself. So this is what happens. They come in, they spit into a vial. For 2 minutes, we say, you need to do this or this. They don't look at pictures of the poses. We don't want to prime them with the concept of power. We want them to be feeling power. So 2 minutes they do this. We then ask them, how powerful do you feel? On a series of items. And then we give them an opportunity to gamble. And then we take another saliva sample. That's the whole experiment. So this is what we find. Risk tolerance, which is the gambling. We find that when you are in the high power pose condition, 86% of you will gamble. When you are in the low power pose condition, only 60%, and that's a whopping significant difference. Here's what we find on testosterone. From their baseline when they come in, high power people experience about a 20% increase, and low power people experience about a 10% decrease. So again, 2 minutes, and you get these changes. Here's what you get on cortisol. High-power people experience about 25% decrease, and the low-power people experience about a 15% increase. So 2 minutes lead to these hormonal changes that configure your brain to basically be either assertive, confident, and comfortable, or really straight reactive and feeling sort of shut down. And we've all had the feeling, right? So it seems that our nonverbals still govern how we think and feel about ourselves. So it's not just others, but it's also ourselves. Also, our bodies change our minds. But the next question, of course, is can power posing for a few minutes really change your life in meaningful ways? This is in the lab. It's the little task. It's just a couple of minutes. Where can you actually apply this? Which we care about, of course. And so we think where you want to use this is evaluative situations, like social threat situations. Where are you being evaluated? Either by your friends. For teenagers, it's at the lunchroom table. For some people, it's speaking at a school board meeting. It might be giving a pitch or giving a talk like this or doing a job interview. We decided that's the one that most people could relate to because most people have been through was the job interview. So we published these findings and the media are all over it. And they say, okay, so this is what you do. So this is what you do when you go in for the job interview, right? So we were of course horrified and said, oh my god, no, that's not what we meant at all. For numerous reasons. No, don't do that. Again, this is not about you talking to other people. It's you talking to yourself. What do you do before you go into a job interview? You do this. You are sitting down, you are looking at your iPhone or your Android, not trying to leave another one out. You are looking at your notes, you are hunching up, making yourself small. When really what you should be doing maybe is this, like in the bathroom, right? Do that, find 2 minutes, so that's what we want to test, okay? So we bring people into a lab and they do either high or low power poses again. They go through a very straightforward job interview. It's 5 minutes long. They are being recorded. They are being judged also, and the judges are trained to give no nonverbal feedback, so they look like this. Imagine this is the person interviewing you. So for 5 minutes, nothing. And this is worse than being heckled. People had this. It's what Marianne, the French calls standing in social quicksand. So this really spikes your cortisol. So this is a job interview we put them through because we really wanted to see what happened. We then have this coder look at these tapes. 4 of them. They are blind to the hypothesis. They are blind to the conditions. They have no idea who's been posing in what pose, and they end up looking at these sets of tapes. And they say, we want to hire these people, all the high-power posers. We don't want to hire these people. We also evaluate these people much more positively overall. But what's driving it? It's not about the content of the speech. It's about the presence that bring into the speech. Because we rate them on all these variables related to competence, like how well structured is the speech, how good is it, what are their qualifications. No effect on those things. This is what affected. These kinds of things, people are bringing their true selves basically. They are bringing themselves. They bring their ideas, but as themselves, with no, residue over them. So this is what's driving the effect or mediating the effect. So when I tell people about this, that our bodies change our minds and our minds can change our behavior. And our behavior can change our outcomes. They say to me, it feels fake, right? So I said, fake it till you make it. It's not me. I don't want to get there and then still feel like a fraud. I don't want to feel like an imposter. I don't want to get there only to feel like I'm not supposed to be here. And that really resonated with me because I want to tell you a little story about being an imposter and feeling like I'm not supposed to be here. When I was 19, I was in a really bad car accident. I was thrown out a car, rolled several times. I was thrown from the car, and I woke up in a head injury rehab ward, and I had been withdrawn from college. And I learned that my IQ had dropped by 2 standard deviations, which was very traumatic. I knew my IQ because I had identified with being smart, and I had been called gifted as a child. So I'm taken out of college. I keep trying to go back. They say, you are not going to finish college. Just, there are other things for you to do, but that's not going to work out for you. So I really struggle with this, and I have to say, having your identity taken from you, your core identity, and for me it was being smart. Having that taken from you, that's nothing that leaves you feeling more powerless than that. So I felt entirely powerless. I worked and worked, and I got lucky and worked, and got lucky and worked. Eventually, I graduated from college. It took me 4 years longer than my peers, and I convinced someone, my angel advisor, Susan Fiske, to take me on, and so I ended up at Princeton. And I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I am an imposter. And the night before my first year talk, and the first year talk at Princeton in a 20-minute talk to 20 people. That is, I was so afraid of being found out the next day that I called her and say, I'm quitting. She was like, you are not quitting because I took a gamble on you and you are staying. You are going to stay. And this is what you are going to do. You are going to fake it. You are going to do every talk that you ever get asked to do. You are just going to do it and do it and do it. Even if you're terrified and just paralyzed and having an out-of-body experience until you have this moment where you say, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. Like I have become this. I'm actually doing this. So that's what I did. 5 years in grade school, a few years. I'm at Northwestern. I moved to Harvard. I'm at Harvard. I'm not really thinking about it anymore, but for a long time I have been thinking, not supposed to be here. So at the end of my first year at Harvard, a student who had not talked in school the entire semester, who I had said, look, you've got to participate or else you are going to fail, come into my office. I really didn't know her at all. She came in totally defeated, and she said, I'm not supposed to be here. And that was the moment for me, because 2 things happened. One was that I realized, oh my gosh, I don't feel like that anymore. I don't feel that anymore, but she does. And I get that feeling. And the second was, she is supposed to be here, like she can fake it, she can become it. So I was like, yes, you are. You're supposed to be here. And tomorrow you are going to fake it. You are going to make yourself powerful, and And you are going to go into the classroom, and you are going to give the best comment ever, And you gave the best comment ever, and people turned around and were like, oh my God, I didn't even notice her sitting there. She comes back to me months later, and I realized that she had not just faked it till she made it. She had actually faked it till she became it. So she had changed, and so I want to say to you, don't fake it till you make it. Fake it till you become it. Don't do it enough until you actually become it and internalize. The last things I'm going to leave you with is this. Tiny tricks can lead to big changes. So this is 2 minutes. 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Before you go into the next stressful evaluative situation, for 2 minutes, try doing this in the elevator, in a bathroom stall, at your desk behind closed doors. That's what you want to do. Configure your brain to cope the best in that situation. Get your testosterone up, get your cortisol down. Don't leave that situation feeling like, oh, I didn't show them who I am. Leave that situation feeling like I really feel like I got to say who I am and show who I am. So I want to ask you first, both to try power posing, and also I want to ask you to share the science, because this is simple. I don't have ego involved in this. Give it away. Share it with people, because the people who can use it the most are the ones with no resources and no technology and no status and no power. Give it to them because they can do it in private. They need their bodies, privacy, and 2 minutes, and it can significantly change the outcomes of their life. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.